Stanford here today with Barb. And Barb, she has Barb's Best Fizz Kit, and she's been all over Bassmaster, and you name it, she's world famous for fizzing. Self-proclaimed, right, Barb?
I guess so.
No, we come up and fish northern events, and you're a staple in the Bassmaster community up there, and even MLF and some of those things. But I got the opportunity to meet you this year, and I was excited to have you on and talk about your Fizz Kit. And man, you blew my mind. We met, last time me and you talked, we were at the side of the interstate in upstate New York. You had no idea who I was, and I was buying pill bottles of needles from you on the side of the highway. So it's a good thing we didn't get pulled over, I guess.
No, that's right. That's a good thing, though. I mean, I connect with everybody whenever and wherever I can. That's how it's been.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 10 years now. So
yeah,
one angler at a time.
That's right. That's right. So what, give us your, give us the lowdown. Like, why do you care about smallmouth where you live so much in the St. Lawrence River area and Ontario, whatnot? But, why did you do this? This is a big crusade and a lot of your time for this. So there's got to be some love involved.
Well, I fish 2 tournaments. I belong to 2 bass clubs. I'm vice president of Salt City Bassmasters, and we have been for, must be getting close to 15 years now. So I've always loved the outdoors, always loved being outdoors and fishing. I fished when I was a kid on a small pond in a lake in Massachusetts with my brother, and we used to row that little rowboat all over the place, trolling for perch, and I just loved it. And then when I was an adult, well, I guess I'm an adult still, but I ended up being a dairy farmer, and I didn't have a lot of time for that. And it was 40 years I went and didn't pick up a fish pole. And then once we sold the cows, I went to nursing school, got a job where we had more time, and we started fishing out of a canoe. And then we graduated to a little 16-foot deep V, and then we bought our first bass boat, and it was all downhill from there. My husband and I both fished. And yeah, it was just downhill from there, and we just got bit bad by the tournament bug and just being out on the water. I love being on the water anyways. I've always found myself on the water, whether it was on the coast of Maine or didn't matter, freshwater or wherever. So it was just a kind of natural progression to get involved with BASS on a club level, and then that evolved into getting involved in I took over the New York Bass Nation Conservation Directorship. I was nominated in for that after Bernie Haney. Bernie did a wonderful job and still advocates and is on various boards, fisheries boards and stuff. And so I've just been following his footsteps. And
yeah,
one time we were at a tournament and they were mouth fizzing fish and to keep them from floating, and it just fascinated me. I didn't know there was something you could do for that. And as we all know, mouth fizzing is not good. It's very bad, but that's how it all started. And then I just started looking for, other solutions and came across the Canadian research and thought, well, that's a lot better because you don't have to fizz a lot of fish through the mouth before you get something that goes wrong, either a spurt of blood or the fish just rolls over and dies, or it's very harmful to the fish. So anyways, when I started doing the research, that's when I started finding this side fizzing thing that Texas Parks and Wildlife had a lot of research on it. And Stephen Cook, who I use his diagram in the Fizz Kit for the smallmouth needle insertion point. And then it just, I don't know, we needed something to use on the water, and I just developed the kit, and then the reamer came next, and the rest is history. I guess started anyway. So
yeah, absolutely. So I've got one of your kits right here. I grabbed it. I don't know, I'm playing on video that I'm not used to either right now, but yeah, it's a really cool kit. What you kind of hit on not doing it through the mouth. Let's jump right into that. Why? I mean, I've go to tournaments and I see people go through the mouth, stuff like that.
Oh, they still do. Old habits die hard, and it is the way everyone used to do it, and people just don't like to change. Even part of my job as conservation director is to bring forward in usable format information that's newer, better, more useful to the angler, you know, like invasive species and stuff like that. That's just part of the job. And education. So that's what I tried to do with this kit. When you fizz through the mouth, you certainly can access the swim bladder through the mouth of a fish. But what you also access is punching holes in it, any one of a number of different organs. You never know which one because the fish are all inflated differently. And you can access the swim bladder, but you punch holes in 2, 3 other organs maybe that don't deserve to have holes in them. They either leak digestive fluids or leak blood. It's very bad. So through the side is completely safe for the fish. You pierce skin, muscle right into the swim bladder. There's just nothing there.
Yep. What I love is, you know, I'm unpackaging this right now. We'll have a video of it also. But man, I used your, you know, I talked to you obviously for a while there, but you know, you've got a smallmouth on the back. Talk about, I mean, talk about how it scales the different fish, you know, but you got your landmarks, right? You know, talk about your landmarks and how that works.
Okay. You see all sorts of bad information on the internet. And one of the things you see ubiquitously throughout the internet is you count 3 scales back from the pectoral fin, 1, 2, 3. And that actually doesn't allow for differences in the size of the fish because the target area will move depending on the fish gets bigger or smaller. On a small fish, you might be able to hit the swim bladder very well, counting 3 scales back. But on a bigger fish, you can miss it completely. Yeah. That's how important that landmark is. Yep. So, and people say, well, I don't see you counting four spiny rays back and drawing the lines. It's like, no, when you fizz, I mean, literally thousands and thousands of fish, you can just eyeball that, and it gets that easy for everyone. You just have to give it time. You just check yourself with the landmarks just to make sure that you're in the right area, because if you are and you use the landmarks, it's foolproof. It's really
you know, really, I know I came up there and I've always done it through the mouth, and really I don't even, when I say always, I've always fin clipped them, and there's going to be a lot of people that watch this and say, well, I just fin clip them, it's fine. No, it's not. And maybe it gets you through the tournament without killing the fish, but at some point something's got to happen for that fish. But you know, when I went to the St. Lawrence River, when you catch them in 40, 50 foot of water, you could put 25 weights on their belly and they're still going to start flipping up and stuff like that. And I was very nervous to do this, and I could not have been, you know, I read your directions. I talked to you, I got your kit. And I mean, I hit every fish. A couple of them I had to do a couple times, but that's okay. I mean, you explain that's all right. You might fizz them, think you get them good enough, and they roll up again and you just fizz them again. And you know, but during the tournament, I fizzed all my fish. I fizzed all my non-boaters fish. We never had a fish die, you know, and it was just awesome. We just did such a great job, and it was easy, you know, for something to me. And I know a lot of anglers probably feel that way, like, wow, you know, if you got to take a needle out and jab it in a creature to figure it out, like, I'm not a doctor. That's the last thing. That's the last thing I want to do is do that in fishing. But, you know, to keep a fish, you know, at my tournament, I got the very last check there was. If I would have had one dead fish penalty, I'd have been 8 places down and I'd have never got that fish or never got that check. So, you know, it literally, no questions asked, saved me a check in that tournament just by doing that. And not that the money really, you know what I mean? The money matters when you fish, right? I get that. But it doesn't, if you're killing fish left and right, that's not good. And, you know, I live at Table Rock or right north of Table Rock, and I haven't really been fishing that much just because I've been busy, but I'm going to go this weekend and this time of year, we start catching them in 40, 50, 60 foot of water on jigging spoons or drop shots, you name it. And you know, you go to the tournament weigh in and, you know, half the boats they've caught, even if you catch them on a jig in 30 foot of water, you know, it's the same thing. They start going belly up, and yes, you can belly clip them and get them through the tournament day, but oh my gosh, what, you know, if you're fishing a little local jackpot tournament, what are you going to do? How are you going to fizz them? How are you going to keep those fish alive without letting them all die? And I think this is where your fizz kit comes in. And absolutely, just great. So
the thing that becomes really important up here on the St. Lawrence and the Great Lakes, and what people, not picking on people coming up from the South, but in the South, they eat 365 days a year. You know, up here, they probably eat 6 months of the year. So you take a 5-pound fish up here, all those trophy smallmouth people catch in the St. Lawrence the big ones, the 5.5s plus, the 6s, the 7s, those fish are 15 to 20 years old. It takes them that long to get that big up here.
That's
Now
great.
it is just, you want them to go back and, spread their genetics throughout there. Not every fish spawns every year, and the older ones spawn even less. That makes them even more valuable. But these fish take a long time to get that big, and it's a tragedy that we should catch them once and they expire in a tournament. The catch and release ethic is to catch and release a live fish. Now, 40 years ago when Ray Scott started this catch and release, you were releasing a live fish, and a lot of people take that to an extent, whereas if they're just one fin wave, an agonal gasp, of breathing, they consider that a live fish. Well, that fish technically is not dead yet, but it's certainly not alive. And I think one of my missions have been, we need to reset our minds in these catch and release tournaments. We need to do a better job. We need to release viable fish, a fish that is capable of returning to the ecosystem, eating, growing, and reproducing itself. That's a viable fish.
Yeah.
Now, as well as I do, those fish with pink gills and yellow eyes that are weighed in, they're just not dead yet. That's all. So we as anglers, I think, have to, pick up our responsibilities and look at this,
especially with the number of anglers now. It's great. Look at high school fishing, look at college fishing, but now is the time. MLF did such a good job of, they release them right away, so the mortality rate is a lot less. I love the idea, but even just these young anglers and people new to the sport, whether you're new to the sport and you're 75 or you're new to the sport and you're 10, you got to keep these fish alive, and you got to take care of them. You got to do that because, gosh, the number of new boat buyers we sold bass boats to this year is astonishing, and they might not get to hear this conversation, and maybe they don't care, and so be it. If they eat the fish, it is what it is. But on the same token, we can't continue to have great fisheries, whether it's the St. Lawrence River, whether it's Table Rock, whether it's Guntersville, you name it. You're not going to have them if we don't do a good job. The tournament guys are the ones that truly catch a lot of fish over and over again.
That's
we
right.
have to do our part to keep these fish healthy and back, like you were saying. So no, I couldn't agree more with you from that.
Actually, what was happening, which really annoyed me, is why I started sitting up at the launch ramps and just connecting with whoever I could. We were really, because DEC hasn't had a hand in it either. What we're developing is a culling tool that takes the best of the genetics and the best of the fish right off the top, because the ones that die in a tournament are all the big ones. I mean, coolers full years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, coolers full of huge 5 and 6 pound fish. I mean, it was just more than I could stand. I love catching smallmouth. But on the Canadian side of things, they take their tournaments a little more seriously. And I don't know if that's because of the research they do over there or what, but DEC is more, in this country, they have no accountability. And I think they should have a tournament accountability, anything over 20 boats or something. On the Canadian side, you have to measure dissolved oxygen and temperature every 15 minutes. I mean, these are requirements. They have to report their number of mortalities. And I think we need to do that. And I think we need to mandate, education for these anglers, as it's actually up to the individual angler, but the tournament organization can have a positive hand in it by saying, hey, look, this is what you need to do up here. It's different than where you came from, make them aware. And then, obviously it's an individual angler, effort to learn, but.
Well, and, to me, the big thing is if you're watching this podcast, you're probably a pretty serious angler, and it's our responsibility as serious anglers to do the right thing. And, is it our bass a renewable resource? Oh yeah. I mean, you could restock them, but are you going to trust your local agencies to restock and do a good job of this? Like, I don't know that we can't, is any agency going to be able to restock the St. Lawrence River or Guntersville or whatever appropriately? Texas does it best. And it's still hard. So if we don't, as anglers, put self-responsibility on ourselves, again, the anglers that are watching this are top-notch anglers, and we've got to do our part and, one, teach other people that were around. And, I taught my non-boaters how to do it. I gave them all the Fizz kits. I mean, It's just, it
Good.
was what it, you know what I mean? Just take it home with you. Cause both my guys lived in northern smallmouth territory, take them, I bought 5, 6 of those kits and I gave them out to the group of guys I travel with. And
Yeah.
God, we made a big order for the tackle store here. I don't know how many we ordered, but I saw a bunch of them. So
Oh,
we've got a
good.
bunch of those. And, if you're here in Missouri and you're fishing around, Table Rock, anywhere you need to fizz a fish. And, something I want to ask you, Barb, I mean, how deep, is there a number? If it's 20 foot or more, do you have to fizz them? What is the rule?
Well, unfortunately, people like clear-cut rules, precise,
There is no rule.
Yeah, pretty much. The litmus test for deciding whether your fish needs to be fizzed or not is to put him in the live well and see what he does. I fish Oneida, quite frequently, and I never fizz the fish down there that I do up on the St. Lawrence. I can almost guarantee it fizz every fish I catch on the St. Lawrence. Now, whether that's because they're coming out of 60 feet up into 5 feet, I've taken fish out of 3 feet of water, put them in my live well, had them go instantly belly up.
Yeah.
So the litmus test is to just put that fish, put out of your head where you caught it, how deep you caught it, put that fish in the live well, give it a couple minutes, see what it does. If he floats, if he's up at the surface, just floating at the surface with his dorsal fin out of the water, he still needs fizzing. Just because he's not sideways or upside down doesn't mean he doesn't need fizzing.
Yeah.
They should be in the bottom of that live well or close to the bottom with their little pectoral fins going sideways and just sitting there happy as a clam.
Yep.
When they get that funky pea soup green color, they're not happy.
Yeah.
And they tell you right away they're not happy. If you put those fish in the live well and you close the lid, you go back to fishing and you don't do anything with them, you'll hear those fish thudding around the live well. They're swimming, bouncing off the sides, trying to jump out. They know they're uncomfortable and they know what they need to do to fix it. They need to get to deeper water because the swim bladders just don't equalize that quickly. It's a slow process.
How long? How long does it take?
I can't tell you how long exactly, but what makes it critical when we catch them is you got to realize a cubic foot of water, 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot, weighs like 66 pounds, something like that. So even in 2 feet of water, you have 120 pounds of pressure compressing that swim bladder, keeping it small. The second you yank them up that last 2 feet of water, that swim bladder goes from a little thing to a great big thing and starts exerting pressure. You mentioned about the fin clips before. They're better than doing nothing. They help keep the fish from struggling, but it doesn't fix the internal problem. And it's usually severe.
That's what blew me away when I was talking to you, because, you catch these and we're talking smallmouth, but it's large. It doesn't matter whether they're spots, largemouth, whatever. If you catch a fish deep, and I've known this, and I've noticed it in smallmouth just because we do catch. I spend the summertime up north when I can, but even at Table Rock down here, you'll throw a spotted bass in the live well, and instantly that beautiful tiger striping, all the colors and stuff, boom, it's gone. And you go, what? Why is and everybody's had that happen. It doesn't matter if you're flipping on the Louisiana Delta. You've caught a fish and you've thrown them in the live well, and you go, ew, that fish looks sick. There's something not right. And it blew my mind when you said where the swim bladder is oriented to the heart and blood flow, things like that, because it made so much sense when you said this. It just, to me, it was a connection that I was like, oh crap. So,
well, imagine for a minute if somebody stuck a balloon in your belly button and blew it up. You would feel just so much pressure and gas. That's what happens to the fish. And what it does is the swim bladder just takes all the organs and compresses it mostly towards the head. And what that does is it also compresses the heart. The heart has to be free to suck blood in and compress, fill and compress, fill and compress. And so when it has that added pressure from the swim bladder mushing it into a tiny space, it can't pump the blood at all. It's going ee, and it just kind of doesn't pump blood. So if it's not pumping blood, the blood's not getting to the gills. It doesn't matter how well oxygenated your live wells are, and it doesn't matter the temperature of your water. It just doesn't matter because the blood is not circulating through the fish's breathing apparatus, which is the gills. So that what they actually do is slowly suffocate all day long.
Yeah. that was one of those things to me that it's like, well, as long as you keep them upright, they should be fine. No, and they're
No,
not,
no.
and that was kind of one of those moments to me that I was like, I've got to make sure that I do a good job to do that, because there's nothing worse than killing fish. And some people are okay with it. I'm not, it is what it is, but I'm not, and at the end of the day, I'm not that good a fisherman. So I better get every ounce I can if I'm fishing a tournament. And
Me too.
And two, it's the right thing to do. And part of being an outdoorsman is doing the right thing with these animals that we capture and carry around and do. So
right. They're captive in that little box. It's up to us to care for them the best they can. And think about, right now we have a 5 bass limit, in New York. Do you want that influenced by like decreased population? Do you want DEC meddling more in our limits? Do you want them to stock bass? Do you want them, all this is with as many people as we have fishing tournaments and fishing for bass, there's a huge impact on their populations. Now, I don't think we want DEC telling us what we can do with our bass fishing any more than they already do. I think it's a good thing. But so many people fish for bass. It's fine if you want to eat them. That's wonderful. I prefer perch and walleye, but smallmouth is better than largemouth. But I don't think we eat smallmouth very often. So
that Toyota series, the second day I pulled up, I never caught a fish the second day where I caught a fish the first day. And I rolled up to a spot that I caught really big ones the last day of practice. Didn't catch them day one, left, came back day 2, and there was a guide boat sitting kind of on the spot but back. And they caught a boat full. It was in the Canadian side. They were, it looked like a deep sea fishing boat. And I didn't really know, I'm not from there. So I didn't know. I didn't realize that they were bass fishing out of a diesel giant tugboat looking thing.
Right.
And my non-boater goes, I don't know if you want to know this or not, but they just doubled up with like 4 or 5 pounders. I'm like, sweet. What do they throw them back? He's like, nope, they put them in a cooler. And I'm like, oh, he goes, oh, they got another one. And they just sat behind me and they caught a 20-something pound limit, just bang right behind us. And I'm sick. You know what I mean? And he's like, do you want me to stop telling you this? I was like, yeah, please.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear anymore.
The beauty of live bait too.
That's right. So
the simplicity of it.
So talk a little bit. I've got your sheet right here. Do you have the reamer? Do you have a kit in front of you?
I can get one in a second.
Under mark, get set, go.
Okay.
John, how are we doing? 4 minutes?
Okay. You want to talk about the reamer?
Yeah, talk about the reamer real fast.
The reamer is what makes this thing foolproof. And the reason it does it because it allows you to stick the fish once and clear the end of the needle. You can see that little reamer go down through the end, and then you release the gas and then withdraw the needle. And that's the deal. That's what makes it work. You can use any, the needles themselves aren't special. They're just regular 18 gauge 1.5 inch, but what makes it special is the reamer. And that's just by using it and finding out what happened is why I designed it this way. And some of the other commercial needles have reamers, but you have to remove the needle from the fish to clear the muscle tissue that's in there. So
I had a fish for whatever reason. I fizzed him, pulled out the reamer, nothing. I didn't think, I'm new at this. So I missed. So I did it again and poked it back in, pulled out the reamer and nothing. Pushed the reamer back in and then it started going, you know what I mean? So it's just one of those, I didn't get it till, everything changes in tournament day and you start getting all weird acting. And what I realized is that reamer, if you just pop that reamer back in and pull it back out, it does let it go a lot better. So
there's so much pressure in there sometimes, that little piece of tissue, you pop it out with the reamer, but it's still like hanging off the end of the needle. And it gets sucked back up when the gas is coming out. So if you just re-ream it, don't remove the needle, just put the reamer back in there and re-ream it. Usually you're good to go.
Yep. Yep.
So
John,
you
how much
found
time
that
we
out.
got? 2
2
minutes.
minutes.
Okay, so we're gonna do a bunch of videos. I'm gonna try to go take a video camera down this weekend and catch some fish deep and fizz some, and then go
Good.
through kind of the instructions. If
Yeah.
people want to see you, Barb, what do they need to do? I mean, Baitworks, we sell some here if you're local, but if you're from out of state, out of area, don't live in New York, where Barb will graciously meet you on the side of the highway, how do they get a hold of you?
Can they see that?
Yeah. Yep.
It's my Facebook. You just message me on Facebook is the easiest way. Just do a search for me on Facebook if you're not familiar with it, but it's www.facebook.com/barb.elliott.127.
Perfect. So if you just Facebook and search Barb Elliott, you'll find you. I think you got fish pictures on there and stuff like that. Like, you're not too hard.
Yeah, probably pictures of my horses too. I don't know.
That's right.
Not
That's
always-
right.
Yeah,
So, you know, I think if people have questions, do you mind them messaging you?
No, anytime. When I sell kits, I always tell them if you have any questions about this technique at any point in time,
Yep.
just message me or email me, get a hold of me somehow. I'm game to talk, answer questions. I want people to understand and have their questions answered. That's what.
Yep. Well, awesome. Barb, thank you so much for your time. We really, 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 really appreciate it. So helping us keep fish alive and keep the sport going and doing all that. And
Well,
I think it's a wonder.
I appreciate your time and publicizing this. It's a really simple technique. After just a couple fish, everyone's an expert. It's not hard. I should have been out of a job 10 years ago when I started this, really. So
Yeah.
thank you for your time.
Yeah, Barb, thank you so much for coming. So everybody watching today, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Check us out for next week's video, but hopefully you guys like this. If you do, comment below, like it. We're going to do a giveaway. So why don't you make a comment and we'll do a few days after the comments come out. We'll say a week after it launches, we'll go the next Thursday and we'll pick a winner to give a Fizz kit to. How does that sound, Barb?
That sounds great.
All right, so make a comment in the comment section and you're automatically entered for a Barb's fish kit. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Like us, follow us, and share this video. Thank you.